All right, so in a music competition, the ratio of guitarists to all musicians is 5 to 8. So that's the first thing we're going to write down, right? 5 to 8. And these are guitarists. And then these are musicians. All right. It says there are 64 musicians in the competition. Of the guitarists, 32 people play jazz solos and the rest play classical solos. So we're going to scale this up. So we know that in the competition we have 64 musicians, right? So that means in the competition, how many guitarists do we have?
Miss Lavelle?
Yes.
I'm stuck on a screen when you let me in. It just says waiting for others to join, and it's telling me that I'm the only one in the meeting. But I can still hear you.
That's interesting.
It just said that you're in the meeting now, so now I can see.
Okay. I just reshared.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we want to scale the ratio from 8 to 64. So to get from 8 to 64, what do we need to do?
Multiply by 8.
Yep. So I'm going to multiply the denominator by 8, and I'm going to multiply the numerator by 8. So how many guitarists does that give us? Total.
40.
Yep. So we have 40 guitarists. Okay. So of the guitarists, 32 play jazz solo and the rest play classical solos. How would you represent the portion of all musicians who play the jazz guitar solos and the portion who play classical guitar solos, both numerically and visually? So that means, so 32 out of 64 play jazz. If we wanted to represent it, jazz solos to musicians, right? We could also do jazz solos to the 40, which is guitarist. I'm just going to abbreviate. Okay, so we could do that two ways. And then I could do the 8, right, because that's what's left over. If 32 are jazz out of 40, we have 8 that play classical, right? Over 64 total musicians. Or I could do 8 classical to 40 guitars. So it kind of just depends on what are they asking us to compare. All right, so that's how we do it numerically. The other way we could do it visually is I could create a tape diagram, and we know that we have 64 total musicians. So I'm going to break these into 7 pieces. I'm sorry, to 8 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need to make that one just a tad longer. Okay, so there's our 7. Or our 8, I'm sorry, 64. So that means that each one of these represents 8 people. So we know that these 8 people are classical. We know that these groups right here, right, this 4 are jazz. And these three, we really don't know what they play, so we're going to consider them to be other. So that's how you would kind of do it visually. Now, the other way, which is the turn and talk says, is there another visual representation? So besides tape diagrams, what have we used so far with ratios? What other visual thing have we used?
A number line.
Okay, a double number line, right? So I could use a double number line, and I could say that 1/8. So this would be my 1, and then I know that 2 would be 16, and I know that 3 would be 24, and 4 would be 32, and 5 would be 40, right? So I can continue my tape diagram until I got to 64. So that is another possibility. Right? So 8. Oh, I did that wrong. This one's supposed to be what? 48, right? And I did this one wrong. Totally missed the number. 7 and 8. So 7 times 8 is 56, and then that would be 64. So I could do it that way as well. Okay? Any questions on that page? Not much to do with circle graphs, but that's how.
Can I see the whole thing so I can?
Yeah, I can zoom out. Yep. So there you go. All right. So now we're going to look at how are we going to do ratios with circle graphs. All right, so we know that a circle graph is a graph that uses sections of a circle to compare parts to the whole and parts to other. Okay? So in this circle graph, we know that it is a total of 360 degrees. So that's what it tells me right here. So it says a circle graph shows how a whole set of data is divided into parts or categories. The size of an angle for a section indicates the portion of the whole that the category makes up. The sum of all the angle measures is 360 degrees. The measure of one full rotation around a circle. So it says Kara conducted a survey of 120 students. She asked how they get to school. The results are shown in the circle graph. Okay, so this amount of people, they get a ride to school. This little amount walk to school, and this big amount take a bus. So what do the sizes of the sections tell you about how the number of students who walk to school compare to the number who take the bus? So what is the first thing, without even measuring or doing anything, can we say about the people that walk versus the people that take the bus?
A lot more people take the bus than people walk.
Yep, so a lot more people take the bus than walk. Absolutely. Okay? All right, so now it says, how can you find the angle measure of each section? What are the angle measures? All right, so we are going to use the protractor, which I thought I had somewhere. I do. All right, so if you have one, no big deal. If you don't, then I'm going to sit here and help you measure them as well. All right, so when we use a protractor, And I know it's hard to see because this doesn't print very well, but what I usually do is I put a big circle in the middle. Okay, and I know you can't really see it, but here's my circle right there. Okay, and on your protractor, you usually, even though this one doesn't have it, a lot of times there's a line that goes right across this little hole. So what you do is you put that hole in that middle. Okay, and usually what happens is, let me zoom out so you can see, is this line that's here usually lines up with one of the lines that we are trying to measure. Okay, so that one's missing it. So let me see if I can find one that has a line. All right, so this one's better. This one has a line. Okay, so see how there's a line right here, guys? So what I do is I line that up with one of the lines that I'm measuring. So as you can see, I lined it up here, and then it looks like that I'm trying to measure the get a ride, because if I come up here and take that ruler and follow that other line, you can see that get a ride is 90 degrees. So I know that this one is 90 degrees. So now if I want to measure walk, I'm going to move my protractor, and as you can see, I'm still in the center, and then this line is lined up with one of the walk sides. Now, you can see that that is what we consider to be an acute angle. So if you look at your protractor, we have large numbers and we have small numbers. So usually what happens, the students, you go, well, what numbers do I use? Well, it's an acute angle, right? So I'm going to line my ruler up with that line, and hopefully, if it's acute, you can see that it lines up with that 30 degrees. Wouldn't make sense to be 150 because it's not obtuse. So that means that my walk is 30 degrees. So since we know that the whole circle is 360, right? We know that we have a 90 degree and we have a 30 degree. So that gives me 120 degrees. Without even measuring, I don't have to figure out bus, because I can do 360 minus 120.
Which would be 240.
Yes, which is 240. Okay? I also would know that if I drew a line this way, I know that this is 180, right? Half a circle is 180. So then plus that little bit had to be 180 plus something. Okay? So this is where kind of some guessing, if you don't have a protractor, would have to come in. So
it would be 60 degrees.
Yeah. So if we knew that this is 180, you could probably give me a guess that it's somewhere between 50 and 60 if you didn't have a protractor, right? Maybe you would have guessed that this was somewhere between 20 and 30. Okay? So I'm trying to show you how you would do this without having a protractor. If that happens, you're going to get a little bit difference of answers. But what's probably going to happen on next week when we get ready to do the on your own is that I'll probably just walk you through some of the measures together. Okay? All right. So how are we going to use ratios to do this? So it says, how can you find the angle measure? All right. So we're going to use a protractor.
Miss Lavelle?
Yes.
Why is there only 2 other people in the meeting?
There's more than 2 other people in the meeting, sweetie. I don't know why it's telling you that. but there's a lot more people in the meeting.
Gotcha.
All right, so I'm going to abbreviate. So we're going to say that get a ride is 90 degrees. We're going to say that the walkers were 30 and that my bus riders were 240, right? All right, so now we're going to write the ratio. So we're going to write a part to whole. So my bus riders will be 240 over 360. Now we're still not talking people, right? We're only talking degrees. I'm going to show you how to do people in a minute. My walkers would be 30 over 360. And my get-a-riders would be 90. And remember, these are all degrees over 360. Okay? All right. So how do we figure out people? So this is where we're going to use our ratio reasoning to figure that out. So we know that our bus riders are 240 degrees over 360. We know that she surveyed 120 people. So that's why 120 is in my denominator. So to go from 360 to 120, we have to divide by what?
3.
Mm-hmm.
So you would in turn divide 240 by 3.
Mm-hmm.
Which would equal... Hold on.
So 3 times what gives me 24?
3 times 8.
Yep.
Minus 4. So it equal 80?
Yep. So since this is people here on the denominator, right, that means the numerator is also people. So 80 people of the 120 ride the bus. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing for walkers. We're going to do my 30 degrees over my 360. My 120 people. Okay? The same thing.
But it would equal 10.
Yep. So that would be 10 people. Now, we could either finish with the last ratio reasoning, or I know that we surveyed 120 people, right? We already have 90, so I can subtract it, so that means how many people we have left is 30. So we can double check it with that ratio reasoning. So let's finish. So we're going to do 90 and 360 and 120. Once again, this doesn't change, so we're still going to divide by 3. And 90 divided by 3 would be 30. Yep, so that's how we ended up with that. Okay, any questions from anybody on that little piece? No? All right. So now...
I'm writing it down.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll zoom out. So now we're going to see, well, how would we draw a circle having the backwards information, basically, right? All right, so there are 45 vehicles in a parking lot. There are 25 cars, 5 trucks, 15 SUVs. How can you use the ratio reasoning to make a circle graph? So now we have the information, and we need to figure out, well, what are the degrees? So let's write our ratios, part to whole. So our whole is 45. So my cars would be 25 over 45. My trucks would be what?
5 over 45.
Yeah. And the SUVs would be?
15 over 45.
Yep. All right. So we are going to use that information to create our ratios. So because we're going to need that. So let me pull it down and do it this way, because we're going to need all that information. Okay. So it says use the part to whole ratios from part A to find the angle measures for each section in the video. All right, so we're going to rewrite it. Cars is 25 to 45. Now we know the circle is 360. So we need to figure out 45 times what gives me 360. Okay, so we would do basically
360 by 45.
Yep. So 45 into 360. We know it's either going to have to be 6 or 8. And the reason why I know that is because it ends in what?
0.
Yeah, it ends in 0. So then I would either try 45 times 6. So that gives me 270, so it has to be what? 8. So that would be 32 plus 4, which is 360. So we're going to multiply by 8. Multiply by 8. So 25. Yeah.
How does the 0? Sorry, I'm stumbling. How does the 0 mean it's either a 6 or an 8?
Because when I multiply something by 5, I either get 0 or 5. Because, yeah, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 6 is 30, 5 times 7 is 35. So see how so I kind of use my multiplication and some logic to figure that out.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
And I think 25 times 8 actually equals 360.
It can't. 25 times 8 can't be 360 if 45 times 8 is 360.
And then 8 times 45, sorry.
Yeah, so 8 times 45 is 360. Yes.
Oh.
So what is 25 times 8?
200.
Yes. All right, so that means my cars are going to be 200 degrees. Okay? All right, trucks is 5 to 45. This doesn't change, right? So this is still times 8. So we would have 5 times 8, which is what?
40.
Yep. So that means my truck is going to be 40 degrees. And my SUVs. Oh. Sorry, I was trying to.
So that would mean it would have 100 or
Maybe 120.
Yep, so
Yeah,
120. All
I
right.
was thinking if you added the 240.
Okay, so what are the sums of my angles? So 200 plus 40 plus 120. What should we get?
360.
Yeah, we should. If I don't, we did something wrong. So 360 degrees. All right, so since we do not have protractors, I have a protractor, we're going to use a little bit of logic to kind of think where this would be, right? All right. So we know that cars are 120. So I'm going to put a dot in the middle. And I'm going to rewrite it down here. So cars is 200, right? Trucks is 40, and SUVs are 120. Okay, so I can remove that other paper. I don't need it anymore. All right, so we know that if I go straight down, right, that is 180 degrees. I know that cars is 200. So that means I need about 20 degrees. So I'm just going to guess that that's about 20. And I'm going to erase that little dotted line. And I'm going to say that this is cars. Okay? We know that trucks is 40 degrees. So that is going to be just maybe a little bit bigger. And I probably should have made that line a little bit smaller, but it's okay. And we're going to say that that is 40 degrees, and this is trucks. And then what is left is going to be SUVs, which is 120. Okay? Is it exact? No. But will it suffice? It's okay. We don't have protractors, so it would suffice in my book.
You could also finish the dotted line between SUVs and cars.
Yes. If I wanted to, yes. So now I can make that a solid line. Yep, absolutely. Okay? So that's how we would kind of use some logic to figure out what they would be. I'm in here. Alright, so it says, how does changing the order in which you graph each category affect the circle graph? So would it matter if I took my circle graph and instead of making my cars this way, I made my cars this way? Does it matter?
No.
No.
No, ma'am.
Doesn't matter at all. Bye-bye, girls. Okay? Doesn't matter what my order. Okay? If everybody's done, you can close it. Yeah. So we're going to write does not matter. Will not change the degrees. Still going to give me the same degrees whether I do it this way or that way. Okay. So that leads me to the check understanding. So I'm going to help you measure these, okay, since I have the protractor. So it says Sarah collected information from 60 students in the 6th grade about their pets. She represented the results in the circle graph. How many students own dogs? So we're going to measure dogs. So let me take my protractor. I'm going to draw something there. Let me enlarge it. Okay. So I need to turn it this way. So those of you that have a protractor, let me zoom out a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so circles in the middle. The line is lined up with one of the lines for dogs. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to align the ruler with the other line. Okay, it is an obtuse angle, so that means I need to use the larger numbers. So right now it looks like I'm kind of in between 140 and 150. So it looks like it would be 145 degrees. So So that's what I'm going to go with on the dogs, is 145. Okay? So how do we set that ratio up? Now that I have my degrees.
145 over 360.
Yep. So 145 over 360 equals what? So what do we know?
She surveyed 60 students.
Yep, so that's going to go in my denominator. So now what would we do?
So we would see how many times you would have to divide 360 to get 60.
Yep.
And then divide 145 by that.
Yep.
Which would be 6 times.
Yep. So then 6 into 145. Was there a question? No? All right, so what do we get? Someone divide, or all of you divide.
I'm still dividing.
Yeah, because it's not going to go in there evenly, right? And we can't have part of a student. So we're going to say that 24 students own dogs. So 24 students own dogs. Okay? All right, so how would we do the last one?
I would assume that you'd have to create a graph.
Well, they're not really asking us to create a circle graph here. They just want to know how many degrees would it be.
Oh.
Okay, so what is it asking us for? Max wants. So what angle measure should he use for English? So how many students like English?
18.
Yep.
18.
So 18 over what?
60.
Yep. And we need to figure out the degrees, so what's going to be in my denominator?
360.
Yes, 360. So
You
to
multiply both by 6.
Yep, multiply both by 6. So 18 times 6.
48.
Yep, so that would be 48. Carry the 4.
And then it would be 108.
Yep, so 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So it would be 108 degrees. Absolutely. Okay? All right, so next week, this is the plan. So Monday, we will start the PMA, because remember, guys, we were supposed to do it about a month ago, and we kind of pushed pause. So Monday, we're going to start the PMA. It's a 60-minute test, so that means we're not going to be able to finish it by the time we log in and log out. Okay? So by the time we get into performance matters. So it's going to take us a day and probably a half, so Monday and Tuesday, to do the PMA. And then what we will do the other half of Tuesday is we'll finish the 6-1 on your own, okay? Because I'll have to, walk through it with you to help you measure the the circles that you can't measure. All right? So that is the plan for Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday is a holiday. So we won't have any school on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we will do 6-2. We will start that lesson and then look at the On Your Own on Friday. So that is the plan for Friday.
What's on Wednesday?
Wednesday is Veterans Day.
Oh.
Yep.
Also, wait, what about the 6.2 and H&H? And they're...
Yeah, so originally I thought we were going to get to 6-1 and 6-2, and then my first period took too long to take the test. And so I don't want to get you guys off because it's just a pain when you guys are ahead and they're behind, and it's a lot easier to keep y'all in the same pace. That way, when you guys decide to come back to face, you just slip right into where it should be. Okay? Yeah, I know, Kylie, on Focus it says it's due today. That is a simple correction for me to fix. All I got to do is log in to Focus and change that. Okay? So 6-2 will not be due, and neither will 5-1 until next week. Oh, 6-2 is not even on Focus. But 6-1 I will change to next Friday. That's a simple fix.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have school on the 25th?
25th of November? That sounds
Yeah,
like a
November.
yeah. That sounds like a Thanksgiving thing.
Oh, okay.
No, we are off Wednesday and Thursday and Friday of that week.
I'm just asking because on November 25th, that's when my birthday comes, and I just didn't know.